right, welcome everyone. It's another episode of The Boardroom, and today my newest board member in the boardroom with me is Paul Stojanovic from Pave Wealth Services. G'day Paul, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks Oscar.
Thanks for joining me today. You had a bit of a surf out Mettams today, mate?
I did. It was nice, fat and slow.
Yeah, well, not the greatest waves today. As well, dropped a little bit from yesterday and a little bit fat for Paul, but it's not always about the quality of the waves. It's about getting out in the water and just
bit of life balance, work-life balance.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining me today, mate.
That's all right.
Mate, I just want to start off, if you could tell us a little bit about Pave Wealth Services and how you got started, the journey to and how you got started in financial planning, mate.
Yep. So my background is pretty varied. It's always been involved around sales and involved in the arts. And over the years had sort of worked through a variety of careers where I sort of ended up doing a fair bit of work creating solutions for people in using financial services. I was approached to then go and work for a financial services firm and ended up being, in the olden days, what was called an agent. From there went to a broker, worked in a couple of large corporate firms and got to really start to see what were the key drivers for people needing help, and also meeting a lot of advisors through the corporate experience, where getting to see, well, what were the differentiators between why they were retaining clients or why were they losing clients. So the GFC was probably one of the big examples. I was working for an investment group, and one of the key things there is that clients were leaving some firms, whereas others were being retained. And the thing I learnt from that is that education was a big part, and relationships. Continuing professional education or educating your clients? Both. So, and there was a big move to move financial planning into a profession. So, and then the criteria for that has obviously changed. But the biggest thing was empowering clients to be able to make decisions, to also understand why financial planners are doing what they're doing. For some people, they want to know the detail, and it's how do you educate them around that. So when the opportunity presented itself after a bit of time off, I started up my own practice with under 2010 or end of 2009. So and there was quite a few mistakes. So I joined in with a firm that was already established, but that didn't go well, which led to some other issues over the years that I've been managing. But the important thing was that I didn't agree with the way that they were doing things. Right. And so when the opportunity for me to basically go out and put my own shingle out, I came out with Pave Wealth Services. The opportunity with that was to basically build a business that was focused around empowering clients to make a decision. It was about laying the foundations for your financial security. But the important thing too was keeping the relationship going and being a fee-for-service model where clients would come and they would pay for your services. Whether they decided to implement that was up to them, but they would then engage us to implement, and we would then put in place ongoing service packages. So that was one of the things that we moved very quickly into establishing and putting in place. So we weren't reliant on asset-based fees, which is commissions. So that was probably one of the big challenges. The other thing that I really I wanted to do was to make sure that we were an approachable business. But I had seen the issues a lot of businesses faced where they'd bought fees. I'd seen it, and that's going back to the corporate side, where the values and the culture was not aligned. I also saw why businesses failed, and from that perspective, it was also a lot of the key decision makers were not in control of what they needed for their business. And high turnover of staff was another thing. So, and I've never run a business. So the biggest thing for me was to look at, well, how do I build a business? What do I want it to be? And the question about what's your why was always something I always... Well, I'll get to that in a minute, mate. But, I think for me personally, it's not about making money, it was about helping people. I have an arts degree, I'm not mathematically inclined. I think there's that stigma that you have to be sort of quite technical. I think there's a place for that. I think the important thing is you have to be an efficient communicator. Financial planning was a business I owned, and I always saw it as that.
Yep.
What I enjoyed about it is the opportunity to demystify what financial services was for people, and to make it approachable, and to break down. Some people would talk to me and go, "Oh, you wouldn't take us as a client because of we don't have $250,000 to invest." So somehow they formed that opinion, and it's breaking that down to say, well, can you afford $100 a week or $500 a month? And if the answer to that is yes, it's like, well, we can start, let's do something.
Yeah, okay. Cool. So just you touched on, why you do what you do. Well, what drives your passion for financial planning, and how did you leverage that in your business when making decisions, mate? You got into financial planning, as you said, you weren't mathematically inclined. It wasn't a natural progression from where you started after uni.
Yep.
But what drives your passion for financial planning? You talked a little bit about helping, but what specifically, helping such a broad concept,
yep.
What was it about helping people in a financial planning sense, and how did you leverage that in your business, mate?
The important thing was I worked out really quickly you can't be everything for everyone, and I didn't want to be everything for everyone. I never felt threatened by other financial advisors. Mm-hmm. People that were coming to me through referrals were, it was about teaching people that were referring to me, well, this is what I do and this is how I do it. So getting that message really clear.
So getting really clear on they'll call it a value proposition for your clients, or your positioning strategy, or your differentiation strategy.
Yep. The other thing is, and what I learnt was, there was stuff that I was just absolutely crap at.
Yeah.
So within the business.
The different functions within the business.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Now there is, when you're starting out, you do have to suck it up and jump into that space. But I worked out really quickly that there was more efficient ways and a better use of my time to basically give me the opportunity to work with my centres of influence and teach them what type of clients I'm looking for, or work with them around identifying the ideal client. But then my whole business was founded around getting in front of people, working with them and educating them, but then providing ongoing service.
Yeah, so why did you want to educate people about their financial affairs, mate? What was that all about?
So a lot of that came from my background.
Yep.
So growing up, first generation Australian, effectively, where migrants from the war, my whole financial planning experience came from my parents, and that was put your money in the bank, save up, buy a house.
Yep.
And I was crap at that because growing up we didn't have a lot. My parents sacrificed a lot, so when we did get something, it was like spend it and get something nice and shiny. So for me, it was also, I think, probably one of the key areas was coming out of the arts background, as I identified that there were solutions that people were bringing. So probably where I first realised that there was a skill that I had was in first year uni, we were told that we had to basically put together a solution for the graduates, so the third years, that were doing their graduate exhibition. And everybody was looking at fundraising solutions, and that was, we could do a cake stall or a raffle, and it's like, well, what do we raffle? And given that we were in an arts facility or faculty, I turned around and I said, well, why don't we clear out the studio spaces and put together an exhibition? We sell the artworks, and that money then is utilised. And that basically ran and was quite successful. And I realised that it's about, well, what are the problems and what are the solutions? And for a lot of people, they have problems and they don't know how to unravel it.
Yeah.
So
within their own
life.
Yeah.
And one of the best examples is multiple superannuation accounts.
Yeah.
So how do you consolidate it? What are the issues around it? And a lot of it is, well, we can do that for you. We take care of it. But then it's getting people to understand what they're invested in and why they're invested that way.
Yep. So you sort of help them understand the issues that they face, declutter that process
Correct.
to unraveling what they've got and implementing a plan that will take them towards.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and the interesting thing around it was our first meeting, we would always wear the cost on it, because what we wanted to do is spend some time with the clients, get an understanding, and so they didn't feel like they were obliged to have to buy something.
Yeah.
But the important thing was we would start out with a blank sheet of paper, a big A3, and we would map everything out, and we would start to identify what are the issues, what are the risks in their life, and how do we start to put a plan in place. And that becomes an engagement piece for clients. We would give them some work to do, and the engagement piece was very much around, well, they would do something, but in return we would be doing something as well to get to a final advice document.
Yeah.
And so it was also helping people through that journey and demystifying it. And it is quite confronting for a lot of people as well.
Yep.
We've had some people where we've had multiple meetings just to break it down and to also explain that they don't have to be embarrassed about their financial situation, because and honestly, I've met people that have been through worse. My situation hasn't been perfect either.
And it's that little bit of, no matter what your position is now, it's a bit like that analogy about planting a tree. The best time to plant the acorn tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So same with your financial. So forget about what's happened in the past. Let's focus about where you are now and how we're going to get where we want to go, and just guiding them through that process and communicating along the way.
That's
beautiful,
right.
Beautiful. So every business faces challenges, and you talked a little bit about one of your challenges was getting clear around how you wanted to service your clients and what you wanted to provide them. But every business has challenges along the way. You've faced a few more than most, and we won't go into massive detail, but you can sort of talk a little bit about that, and I'll leave that up to you, mate. But one of the things that, and I'll get you to talk about some of the specific challenges, but I'm also curious if you could touch on, some of those challenges being quite significant for you. What always amazed me about you was your resilience and your persistence, and you had this really clear reason for continuing down the path, even when I challenged you on, well, do we really want to go where we're going? Are we better off just stepping back from that and doing this? But just talk a little bit about some of the challenges you faced,
Sure.
how you overcame them, and that resilience. How did you build that resilience?
I think around that, and that required a lot of self-reflection to get to understand, well, why and how is that. And I think historically, and I've looked at it, I've paid attention to what did my grandparents overcome coming through the Second World War. What did my grandfather get up to? What did my grandmother do? They came to a new country, and they basically started from scratch. They raised 2 children that have also been quite successful and been resilient in their own rights as well. We've come from a background and a culture where the things that we earn and the way that we work are hugely important. I think the other thing that, and this is hugely important, about understanding your own personal values will also, and being able to articulate that, also holds you accountable to those values. So, and I think
we did a bit of work of that.
We did a huge amount.
And I know that framed up a lot of decisions for you in terms of how people were behaving in your business, and some decisions you needed to make around aligning yourself with people, retaining people, or attracting people.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but the resilience piece, just to sort of cover off on things. So, I had a situation where I'd gone through, and the business decision I'd made early in the piece, and this is what everyone did, was to buy fees. And that didn't work out well, which led to litigation that'd been going for 5 years. To sort of further highlight that financial decision, we had, my wife and I had to, we lost our house. So the important thing out of that is keeping it really clear that it was not to impact the business, and at no point was it to ever impact a client.
Yep.
So I always treated clients' money as their like my parents.
Yep.
So if you apply those values, that helps with that resilience.
Yep.
Where it gets very difficult is when you have aligned yourself to other businesses that are providing you with services and your values are not aligned.
Yep.
The difficulties then become more and more apparent.
Yeah.
Particularly as if you're running a small dynamic business, you need to be in control.
Yeah.
So from a resilience perspective, it was about being or understanding clearly what are the things I can control and how do I control those matters.
Yeah.
And that's
and just focusing your attention
Yep.
on those things that you can control.
That's right.
And you did a bit of mindfulness training as well.
I did. Which
you
helped a lot.
Yep.
And look, to put it into even more context around that, one of the biggest issues I had was I really started to question the decisions I'd made and the financial impact it had had on my family.
Yep.
And that led me to questioning that I needed to forgive myself. And you and I spent a fair bit of time sort of talking through that.
Yep.
So I did the mindfulness side of things, and whilst it sort of empowered me, to sort of deeply understand things, I needed more. So I ended up doing a 4-day intensive life skills course, which the important thing around it was, whilst I had my values, I hadn't put myself first.
Yeah.
So my resilience, once I really sort of learnt about putting myself first, my wife second, my career third, getting my priorities right, it then gave me a lot more clarity around the decisions I was making. I mean, at that time, I was on a national board representing advisors to represent, protect and enhance. So the decisions around that were huge, and the ramifications around that and the responsibility, whilst also running a business and also trying to maintain some semblance of normality whilst going through litigation and having to fund out that as well.
So you put yourself first, family second, wife second, family.
Sorry, business. So myself, my wife, my business.
Yep.
Because my daughter is an adult and we don't have any sort of children. Family and friends then sit below that.
Yep.
And once I got that alignment correct, and learnt more around that side, and with the overlay of the values, it became really clear about what I needed to do in the direction. And look, it is a minefield, and I think also if I look at the resilience side of things too, the big thing is you need to have a sounding board. Because you're emotionally invested into a lot of things, and that emotional investment can limit your decision making.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
You and I have had some very robust conversations where I told you to go F yourself and stormed out and went for a walk for 30 minutes and came back, sat down, and we went through and nutted it out. And that was at a time when
sometimes when it's a bit of a cliche, but it's the old, you can't see the forest for the trees. When you're stuck in it, it's and your business is a bit like a child, to be honest. There's a huge emotional investment. There's pride and there's ego attached to starting something and being part of something and building something. And so sometimes, when people are questioning you or just pointing things out, it can be hard to deal with. But having that external opinion, it's not about taking that opinion just willy-nilly, holus bolus, but okay, I've considered that opinion and I can see it, and I'm going to incorporate that opinion in my decision making, or I'm going to say, well, okay, I've listened and considered your opinion, it's not relevant for me and how I'm going to do things in my business or in my life, but at least I've now considered everything, I've broadened my facts on which I can base my decision rather than being quite blinkered. Right, so that's beautiful.
And what's interesting is that you can, once you sort of identify that in yourself, it really helps you a lot more with your clients to sort of tease that information out of them. So one of the things I learnt was not only through the life skills side, but also through the coaching side. How do you tease that information out of your clients in order to get the right answer, and also how do you hold yourself accountable? How do you and responsible for a lot of the actions? What's acceptable and not acceptable.
Yep.
And I think resilience, whilst it's quite important, it's about where I think in order to be resilient, you've got to be very clear around your values.
Yep.
Because that then helps you align to what is acceptable behaviour and what is non-acceptable behaviour.
Yep.
And then you can make your decisions because you have conviction around the direction that you're taking.
Yep. Around how you're going to behave and how other people are going to behave around you. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yep. Look, you've been through a lot, and I say to a lot of people that know you, I always marvel at through those difficult times, and there were lots, and they went on for a long period of time, and how resilient and persistent you were, and how clear you were around why you were doing, and having clarity around those things, and we did that, and it certainly helped you through those severely difficult times, but also in other decisions around the people that you work with and how you wanted them work. So it's awesome. I'll move on from the challenges because I just think the resilience piece for you, with the litigation stuff that went on for so long, that was something I really wanted to get a sense of. Well, how did you? Because business owners have to deal with different things along the way. Some are minor crises that fizzle away, and others, such as in your case, go on, and then something else pops up, and they're often things that are outside your control, even though you've made your best endeavours to mitigate those situations. So, mate, one of the last thing I'd like to sort of talk to you about is you obviously had the financial planning business, and as a result of your own, I suppose, experience with people not. This is most probably quite a soft way of being truthful and honest with you. It was more around being fraudulent with you. That life experience and that wanting to help others led you down a separate stream in your business that was aligned with what you were doing at the time, which was providing litigation support for individuals that had been potentially or had been defrauded by or badly advised by advisors and had lost significant amounts of money. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that aligned with both your experience and your your why around why you do what you do, and it's also led you into a corporate role now. So just expand on that a little bit for us, mate.
Sure. So I was referred a client through one of the centres of influence in a networking group, and it was a hairdresser that had some money misappropriated, and we investigated into it and we found a number of issues and we filed a complaint. We also gave some guidance on how to get some money that had been misappropriated and how to apply that pressure in order to get it. So they got a large chunk of that money back. But then the complaint process sort of cascaded, and it opened up a whole range of issues for a multitude of people. So we did a fair bit of work helping them understand that where and why the money had disappeared, what the complaints process was, and navigating them through that complaints process and assisting them and facilitating through in order to get a resolution.
Yep.
The thing with that was, it was hugely overwhelming, and in some cases
for the clients. Yep.
So it was basically removing it from them.
Again, that was removing that bit of stigma around.
Correct.
Geez, I've been defrauded.
Yep.
How did I let that happen?
Yep.
And there's in the same way as clients coming to you and going, my financial affairs are not what they should be.
Yep.
There's a real stigma around being defrauded, and just removing that.
And some of the points that came out from it were, we were talking heavily around, well, the clients weren't idiots. But it was just basically the situation that they were in and the way that things were dealt with. So we were able to get a number of resolutions. I'm not sure where things are at with regards to that whole process, but it opened up a whole business opportunity. And look, honestly, to the mistakes I had made, so we had situations in our business where we had made mistakes, but we owned it.
Yeah.
So we set about how to rectify it. And there were instances where we were unaware that mistakes had been made, or a third party had made a mistake. But we basically, because we were looking after the client, we basically worked through and we helped navigate them through a resolution and that compensation.
Yeah.
Because I understand what it's like to get ripped off.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and that became hugely rewarding when you receive an email from a son saying, "You've saved my family. We've saved people from losing their farms. People, their retirement has basically been able to, they've got money
some,
back. They've
yeah,
been
got some
compensated."
certainty back again.
Yeah.
And some security.
Yes.
Yep.
So it did create an opportunity to create a business down that line. The issue with my own situation, it sort of led me down a track where, just 2 posts on LinkedIn, I was approached by a number of different firms to help them navigate through the complaints process.
Yep.
And in some cases we did start looking at it. Where I saw the opportunity there was, and look, we all make mistakes, but it's how you deal with those mistakes, and it's how you work with the people that are impacted.
Yep.
And it's it became really clear that my why was about helping people understand and helping them fix it. Whether I fix it or help them, give them the tools to fix it themselves. With everything that was going on, there was a certain a business decision where my alignment was that my business was hugely devalued. And I had to sit down with my wife and explain, look, this is where we're
and
at.
just for those that are watching, as a result of the Royal Commission and some things that have gone on, there were changes in how your licensee was going to value business. It had a significant impact on your financial position itself. Yep.
So it impacted my financial position. But the other thing that I understood was I didn't fit their future model.
Yep.
And that's the work that, we've done that because not everybody fits your business. So they were going a certain direction and I wasn't going to fit that. So there was a number of things that we started looking at. Do I stay in as a financial planner? Do I build out the
litigation support?
The support side of things. So we became known as a Australian financial complaints advocate.
Yep.
But I was approached and applied in a corporate role, and was successful in that. Now, so coming out of the Banking Royal Commission, a number of the big institutions have made some significant changes. So I've recently taken a role with Colonial First State Investments.
Yep.
As a business development manager for WA, South Australia, Northern Territory. And through that process and watching how they were dealing with the Royal Commission helped me identify that my values were aligned with theirs, and the interview process also reaffirmed a lot of that, particularly around my questions. The way that they're dealing with certain situations is also giving me confidence that I can move into that space and I can still help people, but it's helping in another way, using a different method, which is I'm representing a number of products. How do I position those products that get utilised, that the end user then receives some financial benefit? So whilst it's a significant change and we're still navigating through a number of areas, what it's also allowed me to do is identify with advisors some of the issues that they're facing and being able to relate to them and talk to them about some of the that resilience, how to identify opportunities, getting really clear around your value proposition in your business.
So all that stuff that we worked on together in terms of your positioning strategy, how you differentiate yourself from your competitors, understanding your culture that you want to develop through your values and your behaviours that leverage off those values, and how you imply that within your business in terms of recruitment and performance management, all those sort of things. You're now taking that and using that to add value to a larger number of
and also,
practices.
And potentially identify opportunities where it's like, well, look, here's some of the situations I was faced with. I don't have the time or the expertise to sort of help you navigate through that. But are you really clear about your value proposition for your clients? Now, or are you, there's some businesses that are still sort of working through that space. Look,
some businesses take a long time to figure it out, and not only that, your positioning strategy, as we call it, or value proposition or differentiation, that often that should be reviewed annually to make sure that legislation, economic conditions have not impacted on the value that your target clients see in that value proposition. So while we wouldn't be advocating changing it every year, you just want to make sure it's still relevant, still valued, and still understood by your target market. Right? So,
And so I'm able to, I do have a job. I've got targets, I've got KPIs, but the thing that I've learnt out of running my own business for 10 years, navigating through a lot of those issues, is that you can firstly relate to the advisors. Colonial First State gives me the platform to be able to look at opportunities to increase awareness for business owners. But to also go in and not just start selling a product, but to sit down and have a conversation about, well, tell me about your business. Tell me about what are the things that you're going through. And virtually starting with that business with a blank sheet of paper and identifying what are the issues, and then being able to go, well, look, I can help you in these areas, but hey, I know a guy that can help you here and here and here. And and that I think is the most important thing. So, it's I don't do wills as an example in my financial planning business. I refer to an estate planning. Now, there's a number of advisors that go, oh, geez, we don't have anyone that can do wills, powers of attorney, that hasn't sort of evolved their business to be able to deal with this COVID environment, or Cooties 19. So I can refer to my previous referral partners. I can open up more opportunities that way.
Perfect. Awesome. And you're enjoying where you're at now, mate. You're much more at peace. As much as I know how difficult a decision is, I know how difficult your journey is. It's a little bit cliched as well that, things happen for a reason, but they do. And at any point in time, things are how they're supposed to be based on the decisions that you make. But you're at that point now. You're comfortable in your own skin. You're in a role where you're really enjoying yourself. There's some certainty around what you do and income coming in, and you got time with less stressful time with your family, because you don't have to worry about all the other stuff that's going on in the background. And so that enhances, there's a value to that as well, and you get a bit of time to come for a surf with me on a...
Well, you told me that too.
Well, it's important.
It's work-life balance.
Health is your number one wealth, mate. And,
it is.
And I paraphrase that from my business partner, Rob.
I think one of the key things for any business owner, and this is a big learning piece, is that there are so many facets to running a business, and the thing I learnt is that you get your sounding board. Like, I've got mates that run their own business, but I've also got mates that are employed, and I look at the stresses and the issues, and it comes time, and the biggest thing that I've learnt out of all of this is you have to basically have an opportunity to be supported. You have to be transparent, and fortunately for me, the big point was when my wife turned around and I explained the significant change to our financial position, and she said, well, we'll just go bankrupt. So at that point I knew that she had my back. She wasn't just going to go, well, you're a dick, and leave me. She says that anyway.
Well, we all do, mate, but that's all right. We love you for it.
No, but the big thing is I knew that she had my back. I knew my friends and our family had my back, and I knew that through a lot of the process I've been through, is that there was always people I could talk to. So, Awesome. Well, mate, we'll wrap it up there, because I know that you've got to go back and
work from home at the moment. I just want to thank Paul for coming on.
That's all right.
Magic day here down at Mettams. A couple of quick shout outs. Thanks to obviously Paul for joining me today, mate. Appreciate it. Pave Wealth Services in Colonial First State now. Big shout out to La Buddha for our coffees this morning.
So
Awesome coffee. Shout out to Linda Grant, as I normally do, from Great Circle, who did all the logo branding. Damon Hayes from WA, and Zach Ogram, who shaped my awesome board there. So
and Zach, your dad shapes my boards.
Yeah, Mark Ogram,
Yeah.
one of the legends. No, I don't want a Mal. I had a Mark Ogram about 25 years ago when he was shaping at Santosha, but that's a story for another time. Thanks very much, everyone. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. I will see you in the boardroom for the next episode soon. Yewww!